most of what you're seeing here is railroad and mine, and it sort of kind of tends to blend in or get mixed together. All the locks and wrenches and cans and the lights and so on, all that came from the railroad.
Pick something to show us.
Well, I don't know what to be.
I see a dinner bucket, and I see a helmet.
Okay, so now we're getting mining related.
Well, this is train.
Yeah,
well, we're doing trains.
Well, let's just go on into the mining stuff too, but because most of my train stuff's down at, as I'm finding, is down at Big Stone. Yeah, get a shot of the lanterns if you can.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and what we're looking at here, of course, is the we call them the railroad lanterns. That were the old hand signal lanterns that they used back in the day.
I see a red one there. What's the difference between?
Well, now I'm not really.
Was it a stoplight or?
Would have to go back to an old railroad rule book to be able to answer that. But now this was in the day before there was walkie-talkies, and they actually communicated with these things after dark. By day they could use a flag, but by night they used the lanterns, and there were certain movements of these lanterns that would tell the engineer what to do. Go forward, stop, back up. I can't remember the exact ones, but they actually had a little, what they called a rule book, and they all had to know this stuff, and throw you in a little humorous one here. They were trying to break in or teach a new brakeman, and this happened on the Clinchfield down along the Clinch River, and they were in a curve. So the guy on the caboose could not see the engine. So they had to put a brakeman in the middle, and he would relay the messages, on up to the engineer. Well, this new boy, he was a little skittish, and they put him on top of this boxcar, and the old brakeman, he said, now, you take your lantern, and you do with it whatever I do with mine. He said, you can do that, can't you? Oh, yeah, I believe I can do that. So he was up there. Well, it had been raining. The top of those cars were dank and wet and so on. And the old brakeman slipped and dropped his lantern. And it fell and bounced, went over the hill down toward the river. And that new guy up there in the middle, he saw that, and he paused for a little bit, and he thought, well, he said do what he. So he just gave his lantern a big swing right out in the middle of the river too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What are these things on the wall over there?
Oh yes, now we're kind of bouncing back and forth.
Oh, that's mine.
Between railroad and mine.
Yeah.
These were mentioned in earlier interviews, but there's nothing like seeing it for yourself. This was what the men actually had to use to drill the coal with in order to put explosives in to bust that coal up and bring it down into lumps small enough that they could load it by shovel into a small mine car, probably hold about 3 tons, and bring it out of the mine. And these were called augers. And most of the old people would put the other word with, they refer to it as a breast auger. And what that meant, you say, well, why is this? This right here was called the breastplate. You push that with your chest to provide enough pressure to cause this thing to cut into the coal.
Right, and so it would be against your chest, and then you would use your hand to.
That's right, and then you use your hands on the cranks here. These are just single. Most of them were a double crank. I can't believe right here. Yeah, most of them were. You could use 2 hands. So you're pushing against this to provide the force with your chest, and you're turning with 2 hands. And out here's your cutting bits that you're drilling holes back into the coal.
Oh my goodness.
And so then the next step was, this right here is called a tamping rod. And of course, most of them had a hook on the end of it, which I don't see one up here. But anyway, to clean the dust out of the hole. And then this is your tamping end right here. And it's like, okay, what are you talking about? What are you going to tamp? Well, you had to use explosives. Now, back in the day, instead of having dynamite sticks, they shot with what they called loose powder. It was black powder, came in a keg or barrel, and you would get so much of this and take it into the mine with you, and you had to make your own sticks of powder. This is called shooting paper. Of course, nowadays nobody knows what I'm talking about here. I used to say it was like rolling a giant Prince Albert cigarette. Well, now who knows what that is? but anyway, you would take this paper and pour powder in it and roll that up, and you would make your
dynamite.
You would make your sticks of powder.
Oh my gosh!
In that fashion. Okay. So now this end here, this blunt end, you could push those back into that hole, because they had to be deep in there in order for it to break the coal. Now there's one other part that I want to mention and show you here too, that was done early on. You might notice a little groove or notch in the end of this. And by the way, this is brass or copper, so as not to create a spark. You did not want a spark when you're shoving explosives back into a hole. Now this thing here is called a needle, and of course if you look at it, you can see why it's called that, because it looks like a giant sewing needle, so to speak.
What is that disc there that's hanging off of that?
I'll tell you that in a minute.
Okay.
And so then after you pushed your powder in there, you stuck this needle in there, and it stuck in, penetrated the last stick of powder that you pushed in. All right. Now you had to fill that hole full of clay or dirt or something. If not, the shot would just blow out. It would have no effect going this way to break up the coal. So you had to. This is where tamping up, the expression, comes in, and hence the tamping rod. So you had to fill that thing full of clay that you get up off the floor or whatever. And of course, usually you do. And then somebody got smart along the line. They made these little paper bags that you could put the clay in, and they would fit right in there. And these were called dummies. Dummy in this regard meaning fake. In other words, this was like a fake stick of powder or a fake stick of dynamite, and they would call it dummying up. So you tank those in there, and then hopefully, if all went well, you ease that needle out very carefully. So when you did, there was a hole the diameter of this needle from out here where you are to 4 or 5 feet back in the coal that you're wanting to bring down. Now, how you going to do that? You had this little trick here that was called a squib.
A squib.
S-Q-U-I-B. And what this is a paper tube filled with powder. It has a fuse on it, and it's coated with sulfur to make it burn slow. That would give you time to get away, because you did not want to be there when this goes off. So what you would do then, most time you'd probably drill about 3 holes, and you would lay this squib in the mouth of that hole. You wanted the center hole to blow out first, and then the 2 sides. So therefore, you lit the one in the center, then you go over to this side and light one, and then you had to go all the way back over to this side and light one. Now, if everything goes according to plan, these things kind of like a little bottle rocket or whatever. When that fuse burns down and hits this powder, this thing, it takes off back in that hole. And when it hits that powder, of course, boom, and there you go.
And that's how dangerous it was.
Yes, and that's how it was. And of course, here's the box that the squibs came in. Have a full box of.
What's on the package? What does it say?
It says improved safety squibs. They call them rocket number 1. Hence, like going like a little bottle rocket. But now later, they came out with fuse. And when they did that did away with the needle and the squib. You know, it was much better. And then a lot of times you could put a blasting cap on that and set it off with an electric charge. So it sort of improved as time went on. Oh yeah, and talk about the dummies. There was actually a place in Dickinson County that made these. Here is a piece of a clay dummy that you can actually see what I'm talking about.
Is there clay in there?
Yeah, this is a piece of clay, dummy right here that they actually push back into the hole.
Wow.
So again, you know, actually seeing one's better than somebody just trying to tell you what it was.
Right. Yeah.
But now that, in essence, is how they shot coal back in the day.
That's amazing.
Lot to it, and you had to be very careful, very dangerous.
What is that? Is that a dynamite thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we was talking about when they use the blasting caps and with an electric charge. This is a detonator, and again, when you would spin this thing, why it would create an electric charge, which would travel through the wire to the blasting cap and set the cap off, which would in turn set the powder off then. So like I say, it sort of progressed a little bit later on. Now she was asking about what a little disc was here. Well, you know, you had all these coal loaders. Again, everybody loading by hand, pick and shovel, and you were paid by the ton. Early on, 25 cents a ton maybe, and of course that increased as time went on too. Well, so they would know who loaded which car when they were brought out of the mines. They came out with these little brass discs. It was called a check. And each man, each co-loader, was assigned a certain number, and he would take these in with him. And when he loaded a car of coal, you would hang one of these on your car.
Wow.
And then when they came out, that's how they could keep up with.
So one man would be in charge of one big cart. You know, that would be, he would fill one cart.
Yeah, pretty much. I think sometimes you may have somebody helping you, you boy or somebody, but
I can't even imagine that work.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have many different helmets there, and you've got a lunch or a dinner bucket.
Yeah, this is kind of the evolution of the mining hat right here. It started out with what we call a cloth hat, which I guess is probably a canvas type material, and really safety had not been considered at that time. You have no protection whatsoever. This hat was just mainly made to hold your light or your lamp.
Yeah.
And now early on, they didn't use these in Clinchco, but they used these oil lamps or oil wicks, they called them. That's kind of my grandpa said some of them called them a little teapot lamp because of the shape of them. And then later well, this is pretty much the same kind of hat here, but the carbide came out. Now they always use carbide here in Clinchco, but now at Dayton, some of the early operations, they used the oil wick, because I remember my granddad tell me about that and say, boy, I wish you had one of those. So anyway, I finally did manage to come up with one. Well, then when safety came in, they invented what we call a hard hat, made out of material that was approved by the...
What is that, plastic or?
Well, I'm not sure. It seemed like they called them fiber, but I'm not exactly sure just what that's made out of. But anyway, this stuff was approved by what was called the Mine Safety Appliance Corporation. It was approved to actually be used in the mines, and of course the different styles of those, and then on up to your modern one of what you might see today. And of course back in the day, the men wore these. The bosses would wear the white ones. And now over here, talk about the lamps. Right here's a pretty good collection of those. Here's another one of the little oil lamps.
Oops.
And then here's there were three basic brands of carbide lamps that were used here, and that was an Autolite, a Just Right, and a Guy's Dropper. And one guy made up this thing about those. He said, the Autolite said it Autolite, but it wouldn't. and said your Guy's Dropper said you allowed to drop out and you leave a guy in the dark. But he said, now the Just Right, he said, now it was just right. So.
Wow.
And they made, let's see, where is it?
What is a chemical?
Oh, here it is.
Yeah, you got so much stuff, respirators.
Yeah. And of course, talking about carbide, that's a produced item. Here's some actual cans. Calcium carbide. I don't know. They use lime and something and fused it together and electrified. Anyway, it's a manufactured. It's not a naturally occurring thing. And so this was called a flask, a carbide flask, that you would put so much carbide in it, and you could stick this in the pocket of your overalls and carry it to use in your lamp. And you probably had to fill your lamp about twice a day. Carbide went in the bottom. Water went in the top. And now, so here's your little chemistry lesson. Talking about you take a solid, combine it with a liquid, and produce a gas. And that's what happened. When the water would drip on the carbide, it would produce acetylene gas. So these were actually acetylene lamps, but most everybody just a carbide light was pretty much just what everybody called them. So that's sort of how that.
So where did they get the water to put in that?
Well, a lot of times there'd be water in the mine, and if not, why you always had some of them might want to call this a lunch pail, but we'd say this is your dinner bucket.
Right.
That's what they all called them.
Yeah.
And,
Well, lunch was called dinner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And so this is your dinner bucket that every miner carried, and you would take your water in the bottom of it. And of course, as you can see, it comes in sections. And then you would put food in here, and then you had this was called the pie tray that sat in the top of it.
You remember my grandmother making fried pies for my granddaddy?
Oh yeah, milk and bread. Whatever they had. An old biscuit and a piece of meat left over. Just anything they could put in there.
How long were their work days? Do you know?
Well, I guess early on they was probably pretty long. Maybe work like 9 and 10 hours, and again until the union come in and they got what they call the 8-hour day.
And they had worked in shifts, right?
Yeah,
so it was going 24/7.
And some of them say that you had to work, as they expressed it back then, till you cleaned your place up. So your coal had to be loaded, and your rock that you didn't want, which is called slate, is really shale, but it was slate to everybody around here. So you had to clean your place up and all that before you quit. So sometimes
you were overtime and you didn't get paid for that.
It would.
You only got paid by the ton. Is
right.
that?
Yeah. The coal loaders paid by the ton. And then of course you had your salary men or your company men that in later years they actually come up with electric drills. So they would go in there and drill it and shoot it and do all that for you, which again, that was much better for the coal loaders. All they actually had to do then was come in. I mean, they could go at it, All they had to do was load it. And then, well, of course, nobody knows what a cutting machine is and all that, but, it'd be undercut and shot.
Yeah, well, my granddaddy Hillman, Ivory Steffi said he ran the cutting machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that picture up there? I can't get
This
any
one?
closer. Yeah.
Okay. That is a tipple. Of course, it's no longer there, but it was in Wise County in an old mining camp called Rhoda. And I took that picture. It would have been somewhere between 75 and 79 while I was going to Clinch Valley College at Wise.
Wow.